Living every day in your head for free. You can tap away, but I will not hear you scream. You can break the keys, spread your toxicity, your world outside reality. In your room, a little hideaway, but you let it through. Enough to go.
What's up, Internet? I'm Aries Van Dam. How y'all doing? Your middle-aged aura boss is back. That's right. Shaman of Logic, right there. It's on my business cards, so can't argue with that. Let me turn this down so you can hear me better. Happy Wednesday. How you doing, Internet? How are you enjoying your apocalypse? Is it going good for you? I'm really, really, really enjoying the news because it is just fascinating to me how stupid we have gotten. But oh yeah, let me get through all the formalities. I'm Aries Van Dam. Welcome to my show. I'm trying to prove to the world that I can get monetized and not be some fake asshole who just tells you what you want to hear. So I'm trying to do it this way. If it doesn't work out, I guess I'm gonna have to start lying to y'all like everybody else. But I need subscribers, right? Because I've got a dependent that's part of the show too. He's my co-host. Let me introduce you to my co-host. There we go. Ozzy the Attack Terrier. There he is. Dog food is very expensive for this little fellow. So if you hate dogs, just I guess don't subscribe, I guess. But if you're a dog lover, subscribe because he eats expensive food. Now that's out of the way. Oh, if you'll notice, my picture today is all of the Republicans. This is just the Republican side of the traitors who went to Israel to swear their allegiance to that country instead of our own. So if that's what you support, this probably is not going to be the show for you, right? Today is going to be a Zionism show. Some of y'all love them, some of y'all hate them. But what we're going to do is we're going to try and break down all of the lies in this old debate. It's a little bit old. Dave Smith versus Laura Loomer, right? And I want you to see how some of the ideas that come out of her mouth lead to what you're seeing in this picture behind me, right? And that's this is the Republican side. The Democrats were smart enough not to take a picture, but there's just as many of them. Right? We are infiltrated by this. This is what has infiltrated us. And if you're okay with that, then like I said, this channel is not for you. I have an issue with that. Like I have an issue with fighting wars for foreign governments. But like I said, let's get into the video. Like I said, it's an older one, but I think it's a good one. So let me pull it up.
So let me just say this, okay? The United States of America in the last 20 years, okay?
Before we start too, I interrupt quite a bit usually, and if any of that becomes a bother for you, I put the links to the originals in the description in case y'all want to go watch it without my brilliant commentary to help you through it. But it's there just for that reason. I do interrupt quite a bit.
Between the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, which I think we can all probably agree were like just ridiculous catastrophes that we never should have fought. Let's also add in there the war, Obama's, which I'm sure you'll agree with me about, Obama overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya and leading to the migrant crisis into Europe was an absolute disaster. Let's also throw in there the attempt, right.
So and bringing in all the refugees to
Before we start too, notice Adam Sosnick is the moderator of this debate. That was the victim of the last time I showed a debate because he brutalized him pretty good to where Adam challenged him to a rematch and then ran away from it. So keep that in mind whenever the moderation starts to show that he has a little favoritism to the other side. He's already shown what side he's on. So
Americans,
hold on,
beware.
let me just finish my point. Let's also add in there the attempted regime change war in Syria, which we started, that led to 500,000 people dying. Let's also throw in there the war in Yemen, which we backed the Saudis fighting.
Don't forget the Arab Spring.
Hold on, something else like 500,000 somewhere in that ballpark also died. When you add up all of the numbers, you're talking about millions and millions of dead innocent people. What responsibility do you have? What responsibility do I have? What responsibility do you have? Are we fair targets now to be murdered because we haven't overthrown the status quo, as you just said? Why is it that we as Americans get to hold these standards against other nations, which we would never dream of imposing on ourselves? The question is always asked, what's Israel supposed to do? Don't they have a right to defend themselves? Do all of these countries that we've slaughtered innocent people in, do they have a right to defend themselves? Do they have a right to...
If Iran bombed an all-girls school in America, Congress would be approving World War III right now. Keep that in mind. And we just did that and acted like nothing happened and went and found some more women to kill over there. So keep that in mind as we go through this.
Come over here and kill innocent civilians? I would say no. They don't have a right to come kill innocent civilians. You have political grievances with the government class, but it does not follow, as Osama bin Laden or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or George W. Bush would argue, that it then follows that we can inflict this collective punishment against people. If we're going to be the better ones, if we're going to say you're the Islamists, but we're the civilized people, if we're going to represent the best tradition of Western civilization, then the point would be that we don't believe in any of that. We don't believe that you can target innocent men, women, and children. That's what separates us from the savages.
Israel is not targeting innocent women and children.
They absolutely are.
Intent matters, okay? And I'm one of the most sickening things of this debate, right? Because, and I hate even calling it a debate, because I don't think it's a debate. It shouldn't be a debate to say that Israel has a right to defend itself. The Jewish people have a right to exist, and Jewish lives matter.
But no one's arguing with that.
No, but there are people who are
arguing
with this.
Okay, well, no one here is arguing with that.
The Democrat Party doesn't.
I am. You only have a right to defend if you have a right to defend yourself, but you don't have a right to exist. Not a right that no other country has.
Seem to think that
the Democrat Party is going to support Israel. Joe Biden is going to write a blank check to Israel, and you know it, and I know it, and you know it.
Possibly at the expense of the left.
And he did.
Yes.
But why are you only talking about Israel? He just allocated $10 billion to Iran today.
Oh, okay.
Joe Biden. 2 months ago it was $6 billion for
and
like 5 hostages.
$10 billion.
What was the $10 billion for today?
Who knows? Maybe to go slaughter more Jews, right? Because let's be honest, I really do think that the Biden administration enjoys.
Who are we slaughtering right now? I don't think we're slaughtering a lot of Jews over there. I think most of what we're slaughtering is Muslim people.
Always watching this. I do. I think that we're watching and we're witnessing the third administration, the third term of Barack Hussein Obama. And when you look at the fact that Joe Biden decided, upon assuming the office and taking the transition of power, assuming the White House, do you know who he put in charge of being the senior director of intelligence at the National Security Council? He put a Muslim, jihadist, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, Palestinian individual by the name of Maher Bitar, who also served in Barack Hussein Obama's National Security Council. And so I was able to, I actually broke this story, and this was released on my X account, on my website, and people can, follow my reporting on Loomer.com. But it was Maher Bitar who gave the directive we share intelligence with Israel when it comes to combating Hamas and Hezbollah, because Hamas and Hezbollah, okay, and these proxies, that are being funded by Iran, they're coming across our southern border. So this isn't just
as if Israel's not funding any terrorists to do some mischief for them either. Like I love whenever they point at the other side and say, look what they're doing, while they're doing the exact same thing.
Issue that's unique to Israel. These people are making their way through Joe Biden's open borders, our porous borders. They're making their way through the Darien Gap. They're making their way through Venezuela, and they are coming in. And a security advisory that was just leaked and released, and I believe it. I broke the story first, and my reporting was confirmed by Daily Caller weeks later. DHS had a memo. It came out of their San Diego office that said that they have active Hamas and Hezbollah terror cells here in the United States of America. So when are we gonna call out the allocation of funds to these other countries as well? Joe Biden is not only sponsoring.
We donate money to a lot of third world countries, right? Like the Congo and places like that where they don't even have internet or running water. The only one that's leading in the donations, though, is Israel, right? They get more than anybody. Even the poor third world nations that eat dirt for dinner, they get more money than them, and they have UBI and like paid health care. Like we finance them to live better than we do. And everybody just thinks that's the way it's supposed to be because Congress is bought and paid for.
The attacks on Israel right now by funding jihadists, but also his own appointees within the National Security Council gave the directive to not monitor Hamas and Hezbollah. Well, when are we going to hold the Biden administration accountable? He was literally, his envoy, Robert Malley, was literally running an Iranian spy ring in Washington, D.C., and none of these people are in jail right now.
I'm certainly fine with holding the Biden administration accountable, and I think we should end all foreign aid. I don't think there should be any reason to tax American citizens to force them to give money to any other country. That's not exactly the case with Iranian money. It's not coming from American taxes, but that aside, if you're going to paint this picture that Barack Obama and Joe Biden, they basically just love watching Jews die and they hate Israel, you might ask yourself the question, then why is it that they're both funding Israel to the tune of tens of billions of dollars? Why is it that
It's
Barack
not just
Obama...
black and white, though.
Got to interrupt. When he makes points like that, you got to interrupt when you're a Zionist.
Right, but you kind of made it sound like
but
it is.
we have defense negotiations with Israel where they have to purchase weapons from us. I mean, it's not just like we're giving Israel tons of money for nothing.
There's no agreement that Barack Obama had to use his veto power at the United Nations to veto everything that was condemning Israel. I think it's actually much more complicated than that. Now, if you're going to say we have to hold the Biden administration accountable, I am so with you on that.
Go for it.
We should also hold Obama's administration accountable and Donald Trump's administration accountable. We should also hold Benjamin Netanyahu's administration accountable. And if we're going to say that there's like, the administration is doing these bad things and funding these groups, again, I'll just come back to, I just don't understand how you can possibly take this line and still not be offended that Benjamin Netanyahu openly was propping up Hamas. But regardless of that, what you said before, of course, Israel has a right to exist. Israel has a right to defend themselves. Jewish people have a right to defend themselves. But Palestinians also have a right to exist. They also have a right to defend themselves. And if we're going to just ignore that entire half of the equation, then we're never going to be having an honest conversation.
But you should tell that to Hamas because
that was a key point right there, because the only way Zionism makes sense to you is if you think one side does have a right to defend itself and a right to exist that no other side has. You have to think those other people don't have that right? That's the only thing that can make this make sense. If the Israeli side has the right and the Gazans don't, then it's okay to blow them up. That's the only way this bullshit makes any sense to anyone.
Because nobody in Israel said that Palestinian lives don't matter. Nobody in Israel said that Palestinians don't have a right to exist.
No,
I've been to Israel. I don't know if you've ever been to Israel, but you have. You're saying nobody there has said that they're animals?
No,
The bomb had a little to say about that. When it exploded and it just blew their innards to the outer corners of the room, it kind of tells them that they don't have a right to exist now because they're dead.
Nobody has said that they don't have rights.
In terms of their structure. Try going to Gaza and see how long you survive. Try going to Gaza. Maybe you should schedule a stand-up comedy tour in Gaza and see what they do to you, Dave.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't want to go. What type of point is it that I wouldn't want to perform in an Israeli prison? Sure,
it's not
yes.
an Israeli prison.
Yes, it is.
You have Palestinians that were given work visas, to go work in the kibbutz. These people welcomed these Palestinians in. They were able to get clearance through the Israeli government. And you know what these people did? They were considered innocent civilians too. They mapped out the kibbutz and they turned over the maps to Hamas.
Has Israel committed any crimes against the Palestinians?
You have Palestinians that actively serve in the IDF. You have Muslims, you have Palestinians who have positions within the Knesset, which is the Israeli government. So this idea that, Palestinian or Muslim lives don't matter in Israel, and every Palestinian is such a victim. Do you know what Israel's doing?
I want y'all to pay attention to that. That just came out of a Zionist here who thinks that anytime you insult them, it is anti-Semitic. You can't even disagree with them about policy and where our money goes to without being called an anti-Semite. She just said that it was them being too sensitive. So pay attention to that.
Doing right now, Israel is delivering incubators. You have IDF soldiers risking their lives, going into Gaza where they know that people want them
They're probably ovens.
dead because they were born Jewish. And they are delivering incubators for Palestinian babies inside a hospital because Hamas has a tunnel underneath the hospital. They are making the Palestinian people human shields.
Sure, let me ask you. Let me ask you something.
What you did say was actually true about, I think 20% of the army, IDF, is Arab. They have members who are Arab in the Supreme Court,
these people
where there are
are
absolutely
living in a
zero
prison.
Jews allowed in Gaza.
Oh, no question
So there is
about
a
that.
distinguishment
Yes,
there where
there's a distinction.
I'm not denying that
Arabs
there's
are
a
allowed
distinction.
to be in Israel, and many love their life there. I think the majority do, whereas zero Jews are allowed to live.
Sure, absolutely.
Good point, moderator. Good point, moderator. Is that what you're there for?
In Gaza. So
it's
it's
not
not
a fair comparison, Dave.
Well, look, I mean, no,
It's not a fair comparison, is what you're saying. And it's not a prison
What
as well.
comparison did I make that was unfair?
Well, what you had said before.
Have you been to Israel before?
Many times.
Here we go.
How
Many
many times
times.
have you been?
I've been to Israel about
Here we
6
go.
times. And prior to COVID, I used to, there was a group called the United West. And, I'm a Zionist and I'm a proud Zionist. I don't care who that offends either. I'm proud to be Jewish. I'm proud to support Israel. I'm proud to be a Zionist. And I don't give a damn who that offends either. I know there's people out there that want to use the word Zionist like it's some kind of dirty word. But I firmly stand against that. And I used to lead a group of people. They were both Jews and Christians, Christian Zionists. And we would take a border security trip every single year. And we would teach American Zionists, a lot of evangelicals, Christians and Jews, and we would teach them about border security. And we would go to the Lebanon border. We went to the Gaza border, and we would show people the importance of walls. And this was even before President Trump was first elected. This was in 2015, 2016. And I continue doing this all throughout the Trump administration as well. And a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the Israeli designer of the wall on the border between Israel and Gaza was actually contacted by the Trump administration, and his guidance was sought in terms of how to design the structure for the United States border wall.
Have you been to any Middle Eastern countries other than Israel?
Yeah.
I've designed a few walls myself. I built a house. I designed every wall in that house, and they all function perfectly fine.
I've been to the UAE. And I have, let's see, where else have I been? I try not to go, honestly. I mean, I don't really like going to Muslim countries, I'll be honest with you.
Have you been to Israel?
I don't have a desire to go to
any
Muslim
Arab countries? Have you been?
Now, they like to ask this because they know Dave hasn't been. He's told them all repeatedly in other debates that he hasn't been to Israel, and he doesn't want to go to Israel, just like I don't want to go to Israel. But they keep trying to use that as some kind of a point here. And this is the moderator trying to make this point in the debate, not the fucking debater that he's debating against. The moderator is making this point that you haven't been to Israel. Like, you haven't been, just like the Douglas Murray did in his debate.
The Middle East?
No, I've never been to Israel, but I'm from New York City, so I grew up way Jewier than that.
He's from New York.
So what do you say to the people that say, look, you've never been there, man?
Well, I think we should go. Like, I would love to go to Israel with you.
Sure.
I would love to take you.
He made an argument on Piers Morgan the other day about London, and then when they asked him, he hadn't been there in a decade. So what does it matter? You just visit one time and now you're good for life? You can just comment on the world as long as you've seen that part? I saw it when I was 12. Who gives a shit? Things change very quick in this world. So who cares if you went to visit there a decade ago? It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to what's going on right now anyway. So who cares about visiting? It's so stupid.
We might give it a few months.
No, but seriously,
anyway,
say to the people that say, look,
as if you have to go on the propaganda tour to be able to comment on something.
Look, you've never been there, man.
But I think we should go. Like, I would love to go to Israel with you.
Sure.
I would love to take you to Israel so that you can see.
We might give it a few months.
No, but seriously, everybody should go and see for themselves.
Listen, look, it's just all of this, right?
Adam hasn't been to Iran, I bet. But he has a lot of comments about that. So why is it okay for you to comment on Iran and not go there? But it's not okay to comment on Israel unless you go there and go on their propaganda tour. Make that make sense? How come one country you don't have to visit, the other you do, right? That's the logic in these people, because they're not looking for reason and fairness. They're just looking to make a point. They just want to make a point in front of the camera, right? And they just pray that you don't ask that question back.
Like, let me first say, it's totally irrelevant. And you could say that if somebody in the year 2002, when the war drums were beating to go fight a war in Iraq, and if I were to sit here and say, we should not fight this war in Iraq, and then someone else goes, he's got weapons of mass destruction, he's in bed with Al-Qaeda, and they go, and I've been to Iraq, so I know. Like, okay, but that's totally irrelevant to whether. Hold on, let me just say. That's totally irrelevant to whether you're right in the
actually
argument.
Seeing what's going on, like on the border.
Sure, but lots of people can go to countries and not. Someone could come visit America, and that doesn't mean they understand the totality of America.
There is a difference between going to the U.S.-Mexico border and when you're talking about the border situation.
I'm not saying you can't gain any knowledge from going there, but I'm saying it's irrelevant to whether you're right or wrong in the argument.
It's not irrelevant when you saw what I saw.
Let me just say, look, to your point.
You're not allowed to comment on it until you kiss the wall. That's their fucking feeling about that.
Because I want to actually grant a point here, because I do think there's an asymmetry in this debate where I'm not sitting here and saying Palestinians have never done anything wrong to any Israelis, and I would never even address the fact that this and this and this was a war crime or this. I certainly will. There have been lots of those, okay? And it is certainly true, and a lot of the kind of pro-Israeli loudest voices like to make this point a lot. Ben Shapiro's and probably yourself, and this is a fair point that I think everybody should recognize.
And I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, I'll just say.
Sure, but I'm just saying.
He may be Jewish, but just because he's Jewish doesn't mean that I agree with everything
Well, I wasn't
that Ben
saying just
Shapiro
because he's Jewish, because we're all Jewish. I'm just saying that other loud pro-Israeli voices will make this point, which you probably would agree with, so just listen to what I'm saying. That if all of us had to live as the average Arab citizen of a country, and we had to pick which country we were going to live in, and you get the average citizen's life. We'd all want to be in Israel. That is the best. If you were an Arab citizen in Israel, that is way better than being the average citizen in Egypt or Saudi Arabia or Jordan.
Hell, until the bombs started dropping back from Iran, it was a better place to live than America. Like, shit.
Or any of these guys. So I will totally grant.
Just talking about the benefits you get that we pay for. Like, it'd be nice to get the benefits we're paying for a change.
That.
Maybe the UAE.
No.
Not average.
Okay.
Not average.
Okay.
No, so you're thinking of the elite.
Tourists.
So you hang out with Patrick Bet Davis. You're not going over there and hanging out with like the average
Hang out with the guys in
people.
Dubai.
Okay?
I see what you're saying.
No,
They
so
have
that's
imported
different.
slave labor
I'm not
there.
talking. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about
Saying
like the
average.
1%. I'm saying
Got
the
it.
average person there.
Got
Okay.
it.
Got it.
So and
By
by the
far and away,
way,
you could live in Israel.
because I love liberty and I respect civilization, I recognize that. I think there's a fair reason to kind of support the people of Israel and the country. But the point is that that's irrelevant to the conflict. Okay, in the same sense that if you were in a bar fight and and if a cop showed up and you were like telling them you saw a bar fight and you were like, this guy came at this guy with a bottle and he punched him back in the face. And then you went, oh, well, then I guess that guy was defending himself and this guy was the aggressor. And then if someone else came to the cop and they go, yeah, but the guy coming at him with a bottle, he's really good to his wife. Like he always tells her she's beautiful. He doesn't cheat on her. He doesn't do anything. You'd be like, yeah, but that's irrelevant to the conflict here. So just for an example, if you look, the average Muslim citizen in America has a much better life than the average Muslim citizen in Iraq under Saddam Hussein. But if you said who was the good guys and who were the bad guys in the war in Iraq, well, the bad guys were the American military who were invading under false pretenses. Or really say the bad guys were the Bush administration, Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. The soldiers were maybe brainwashed into it. But you get the point I'm making here, that even though we are a superior civilization than Saddam Hussein's Iraq was, that doesn't mean that you're not guilty of any crimes when you go over there and slaughter 1 million people and displace 15 million more on a war sold on lies. And the fact is that you can ignore it all you want to, but if you're going to pretend that there are no crimes, no moral crimes and legal crimes that have been committed against the Muslims by the Jews from 1948 till today, you are not living in reality. The truth is it's inexcusable what Israel has done to these people. They won a war in 1948 and they won a war in 1967, so these people have to be subjugated for eternity? And you think that's not going to breed blowback and resentment?
But so are you basically proposing that we turn New York back over to the British?
No. Why would I be? How would that even follow? But how would that even follow?
No, because you're like, oh well, these people won a war, and so they have to be subjugated for eternity. That's what happens when you win wars, dude. Like you win a war,
Okay.
you win a war, and you control the narrative.
So if the South won, we would still have slaves today in modern times. Right now, you would have some black guy. You just go wake up and make him go cut your grass. Like this is the logic this bitch has.
And you write history. So are you basically saying that we need to turn over land back to the British, or we need to turn over land back to the Indians? I mean, do you see how ridiculous this sounds?
Well, right.
The Indians got their
the
But you
Indians
live in
would
New
actually
York. Should we give New York back to the British? I'm asking you a question because that kind of is what you basically
respond.
Okay, so actually the Indians in the example makes more sense.
No, it actually makes more sense with regards to
you asked me a
the British.
question, so let me answer. Okay, no, it actually makes more sense in terms of the Indians because they were the indigenous people living here and we kind of kicked them out. And the British were our colonizers who invaded us and we fought them off. So that's just a totally apples to orange.
But you're accusing the Israelis of being colonizers.
Laura, let me just speak.
But I'm just saying you accuse the Israelis of being...
The example, if you just follow what I'm saying, the example to the natives would make more sense. But look, here's the thing, right? It seems pretty universally agreed upon in modern society that what we did to the Native Americans wasn't completely right. Now, I'm not saying we're going to give all our land back to them because of that, but at the same
They did give us casinos, though, and I'm happy for that.
time, I'm also not saying that Israel should leave all of Israel and give it all back to the Palestinians. The point is that there's still 2 million in Gaza and what is it, 3 million, something like that in the West Bank. Okay, so the point is that if you can recognize that something was wrong, I'll be the first to recognize what we did to the Native Americans was wrong. That was not okay. And so now you're also adding the fact that this was not it starting in the 1400s up through the 1700s. This was in 1948, when all of our grandpas were alive. That's not such a long time ago. There are people, not that many of them now, but there are people in Palestine who were the original people there. And so, yes, of course, it's worth it to at least recognize that this happened. It was wrong, and there are going to be resentful feelings about that. But no, I wouldn't say we should give it back.
It was wrong that Israel was surrounded by Islamic aggressors on every single
They
border.
weren't surrounded.
They chose that plot of land that was surrounded by those people before they got there, and now they're complaining that the people around them are all mad at them and their different race, or I mean, different religion. That's how silly that argument is. They chose that. They were originally going to go to Africa, though, some other part of Africa down, I don't remember where, but they had other plans. They chose that, and now they're complaining about it.
Yes,
They
but
settled there. They chose that they wanted to have a Zionist project.
I didn't watch this before. I just got news. So sometimes I worry about stepping on shit they're about to say, so I apologize if I say something before they do. But I didn't watch this one again. I watched it like 2 years ago or whenever it came out for like 5 minutes, and then I turned it off, and I just decided to do it. So sorry if I step on the line sometimes.
It is wrong. No, but you're talking about a Nakba, I assume, right? And so the reality is that this idea that, oh, the Jews just drove all of these Palestinians away. No, there were many Palestinians who said, you know what, we don't want to be casualties of a war because of all these, invading Islamic armies that are going to surround. And so there's a lot of people that fled on their own accord because they didn't want to die.
Did they want to come back?
They wanted to, well, you have to ask them.
So let me just respond to a couple things you said here, because this is, I think, really important and gets to the crux of the matter. So number one, I'd say, okay, if you fled, some of them were forced out, some of them fled. We know all this from the historical record. Regardless, if some people start shooting outside my house and I take my family and run, I don't think that means that they own my house now. But
but who's shooting?
Hold on. Well, Israelis in many cases.
But that's
in
a
some
big part,
cases,
right? In many
okay,
cases.
In many cases, I'm not saying all.
Man, I wish they had a moderator for this one instead of it being a 2v1 debate. Wouldn't that be nice to have a moderator that says, hey, stop interrupting?
Because I'm not being black and white here. Okay, but let me make my point. This is the bigger point. Here's the bigger point, because I think this is the height of the whole debate here. What you said before is you go, look, yeah, they won the war, and they get to write the history books, and they get to control the land. That's the way of the world, right? That was literally what you just said.
But that is the way of the world.
Okay, fine. But then own that. If you're just saying might makes right, and that's okay, fine. But then accept this. You don't get to look at these Islamists and say you're a bunch of barbarians, because all you're saying is might makes right. And you know what their response to that is? October 7th. That's the response. You say might makes right? Okay, well then guess what? We're going to use all the might we have. It's exactly what you're saying. But I just asked if that's what you were saying, and you said yes. So if you're going to...
She changed her mind when she heard your argument, Dave, to be fair.
Look at the way we think about ourselves here, right? In terms of the British colonizers, okay? Like, what about...
Might makes right until you do it back to me.
Oh, that's why I gave the example that I gave, because it's just ridiculous. Like, are we going to turn over New York back to the British or back to the Native Americans? It's the same exact concept. What do you want to do? Are you just going to surrender Israel to the Arabs?
But I already said no to that. I said no.
But me making that example isn't me just saying, oh, might makes right. The fact of the matter is this was planned. This was planned to be symbolic, okay? This was done on the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. This was done on Shabbat. This was done during a Jewish holiday, okay? When the Jews were not using electronic devices so that people couldn't even call for emergency services, so that people couldn't even communicate with their loved ones. This was planned. This was done, and it all relates.
Over half of Israel is secular, so...
to Islam. Okay, I'm going to read something to you now, because I want you to understand how this isn't just, oh, the Palestinians got so angry with these Jewish Israeli occupiers, and so they finally snapped and decided to fight back. In Islam, there's something called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, okay? And I'll read this to you. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah was an event, and this is real, that took place during the lifetime of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. And in warfare, and whenever Muslims are dealing with Jews in the Islamic world, or anybody for that matter, when it comes to peacemaking treaties or discussions of peace, and especially in times of war, they have to refer to this Treaty of Hudaybiyah, in which they have to go in increments of 10 years, right? And so Muslims are only allowed to attack when they're in a position of strength. And so if they're in a position of weakness, they have to retreat for 10 years, okay, according to the Prophet Muhammad and the guidelines laid out in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So this was planned. We know that this was planned. We know that, you know, there were Muslims.
Cool point. Would you like to talk about the Hannibal and Samson protocols now? Those are pretty fucked up little rules or laws that your country likes to initiate too. So let's talk about all of it. If we're going to talk about the shit the Muslims are doing, let's talk about the shit that Israel's doing as well.
Both in Gaza, we know that the Iranians were funding Hamas and Hezbollah operatives, and that there was widespread coordination. Okay, they were following Islamic doctrine to carry out this attack on Israel on October 7. And so it's not as simple as just saying, oh, let's look at the history and let's look at the land disputes. We need to have a conversation and start educating people about the barbarism of Islam. And they need to understand what the Treaty of Hudaybiyah is. Our politicians need to understand this as it relates to foreign policy so that we don't spend billions of dollars, you know, trying to implement peace in the Middle East, because there's never going to be peace. There's never going to be peace in the Middle East.
There you hear it from the Zionist herself. There's never going to be peace in the Middle East because they're never going to let it happen. That's what she's trying to tell you. We're never going to let that happen. We're going to we're going to disagree with everyone in the region no matter what. So might as well go to war.
You think we've been too soft on the Muslims over the last 20 years? We got to really understand that Islam is a threat and do what? Fight 7 wars?
No, I'm not in favor of going to war.
Who reflects on the last 20 years of American foreign policy and goes, you know, the problem is we never recognized that Islam was a threat. We've never done it. We've just been leaving them alone this whole time. Maybe we should bomb 7 of their fucking countries for 20.
But that's the problem, Dave. But that's the problem, right? You had George W. Bush in the aftermath of 9/11 who said that Islam is not our enemy, right? And then he invited.
That was his problem? That he said one nice thing about Islam.
No, but
not that he launched stupid catastrophe wars.
But we wouldn't have needed to launch wars in the Middle East if our lawmakers understood that we were never going to be able to export democracy to the Middle East, okay? And so that really is the true anti-interventionist stance, is that when you have an...
I wonder, why was Israel's leader, their current prime minister, why was he going to our Congress and begging us to go attack them then? It's really confusing. It's like mixed signals from this country.
Actual understanding of Islamic doctrine and the fact that these people don't want peace. They don't want to coexist with other people. Okay, they want you to either believe in Islam. They want you to be one of them. It's convert, submit, or die.
All of them. So that's all of them. So
how much blood was spilled trying to export democracy
Nobody is denying on this panel that it was an absolute catastrophe.
Hold on, Laura. That don't believe in human rights.
Laura.
You don't believe in human rights.
I do believe in human rights.
How many Palestinian babies can be killed? Is there a limit to it? Is there a limit where you go?
We don't know.
You don't know. So don't tell me you believe in human rights.
We don't know how many. We don't really know how many people have actually been killed.
Nobody here is denying.
We'll just never know because Israel will never let us find out. So just keep going off of, we can't say.
Let me say this,
Is there a limit, though, where you go, that's too much?
Relax.
Is there a limit? Is there a number of Palestinian babies?
I'm going to ask you a question because you guys aren't hosting the panel.
That's not what I'm saying. Oh, so it's all their fault.
Nobody's denying. Nobody is denying here that it was an absolute disaster what George W. Bush did in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Nobody's denying that. But so you're saying that we can't go over there and try to export democracy and regime change and topple regimes?
No, we
disaster.
shouldn't.
Nobody's
It's never going to work.
But Israel.
Really? What are we doing right now? What are we doing right now? You just said it will never work. And you're on Twitter right now trying to get us to do it again. Again in Iran. Now we're going to bring democracy to these people we're about to explode with nuclear missiles. Oh, it's going to be so nice once they're not radioactive.
Lives in the, as you kind of pointed out, the best house in the shittiest neighborhood. So they're basically dealing with exactly what you call it, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah? Okay. So what did Israel need to do now? How does Israel deal with this now? Forget about America right now. We have our own issues domestically. But they're in that situation.
Right.
Forget about America. Where does Israel go from here?
That's the problem. They forgot about America a long time ago.
Well, I said from the very beginning, and this is, I think, why you invited me to this debate, right? Because I was very outspoken in my support for completely obliterating Hamas. I'm not saying kill all Palestinian people, but Hamas needs to be obliterated.
And however many Palestinians die in that process is fine.
Look, it's unfortunate that people are dying, but at the end of the day, right? We need to have an honest conversation about what's going on. You're talking about the numbers.
She just said it's unfortunate that innocent people are dying. Like, too bad. It's really sad. We're just going to keep doing it.
The Gaza Ministry of Health is controlled by Hamas. They have been caught inflating their numbers. They lied and they said that Israel bombed a hospital. They said that, but let me finish.
Let's say the numbers
are not real.
Okay, fine. So let's say
Israel
that.
doesn't want to kill babies. They're delivering incubators to the hospitals that are doctors are being held.
And then they blew that hospital up. There you go. What do you think's in there now with all those baby incubators? I bet there's some babies in there.
Held hostage. Muslim Palestinian doctors are being held hostage by Hamas that has created tunnels underneath this hospital.
Yeah.
Okay, they are launching.
Is this the Al-Shifa hospital?
They are launching.
Hey, we found out they were doing that in New York too. Should we blow up New York?
This is from the Wall Street Journal. They did come out and say that basically
Except that wasn't the Muslims doing it. Which side was doing that? Who was digging the tunnels in New York?
Yes.
Hamas's headquarters is under this Al-Shifa hospital, and they're basically using babies and sick people as human shields. This is Wall Street Journal.
Because Netanyahu said we're going to obliterate Hamas, and so they said, okay, you want to obliterate Hamas? Then we're just going to try to create another PR crisis, and then you're going to have all these leftist progressive organizations, as I said, funnel in all this money so that people can be brainwashed into thinking that there's thousands of people around the world propping up and matching T-shirts and signs.
That's exactly what terrorism is, right? It's trying to provoke a reaction.
And then I'm going to have you,
don't fall right
I'm going to
into
ask you the exact same question. Other than just bomb the shit out of Gaza, what else should Israel do from here?
Well, Israel needs to have support. I'm not saying send additional aid. What I'm saying is that people need to understand that this is a war between good and evil, okay? And so if you
Agreed. We just disagree on which side is the good side and which side is the evil side.
want to liberate the Palestinian people.
And to be fair, I don't really think either side's really good. Like, good is like, let's just say between bad and worse. That's what I'd call it. A war between bad and worse.
And if you are one of those people that is foaming from the mouth chanting free Palestine, okay, then you need to be in support of the eradication of Hamas, because the Palestinian people are never going to be truly liberated until they are liberated from their oppressors, and their oppressors are Hamas, not the Jewish people delivering them incubators, not the Jewish people making sure that they have food and medical care. Okay, do you know that there are family members of Hamas terrorists who, they themselves didn't carry out any acts of terrorism, and they were sick. Some of them needed organ transplants, and they were actually.
This is all bullshit. They held up aid for months while the people starved, and they're trying to pretend like they were giving them food. No, they had food. They just couldn't get it because they wouldn't let it go through.
Given medical treatment. That's how humanitarian Israel is, okay? They are giving medical aid to family members of Hamas because they believe in the preservation of life.
If we need to, I can pull up some pictures of Hamas and what it looks like right now, and you can tell me if they were blowing up those hospitals or if they were delivering incubators so that the babies could survive. You tell me. We can look at the rubble now, and you can decide for yourself.
Life, okay?
Yeah, well, okay, but they're also killing people in extremely high numbers.
I
know you'll cut me off right away, but there's right. I know they don't mean to. They don't want to. But they will.
That's what you do when you don't have a moderator worth of shit.
They will hit targets where they know there are civilians there because they suspect one Hamas guy is there as well. So
but it's not one Hamas guy. He literally just said the Wall Street Journal confirmed that Hamas's headquarters is underneath.
Yes, and
that is true.
Yes, I'm not denying.
It's not just one.
Hold on, wait.
Let me ask the question.
And Israel's headquarters is also nestled in between hospitals and in a civilian area. What's your point? Why is it bad when they do it and not bad when you do it? Same fucking thing. It's always bad when they do it, fine when we do it.
And then you're going to answer. Here we go, Dave. Hold on, guys. He did make a point that it's, Trump famously said, if you come at me, I'll come at you 10 times harder. He said that. You know that, right?
And in his speech to the RJC last week, it was brilliant. I loved it. When I saw him, I said, I loved your speech, Mr. President.
Cool, but this question isn't about Trump.
One drop of blood will spill a gallon of yours.
Okay, there it is. Got it. So basically,
and some innocent blood in there too.
Israel's winning basically 10-1. So for the 1,200 lives that were foolishly slaughtered at the hands of Hamas, at least 10,000, according to Hamas's numbers, according to UN numbers, we shall see 10,000 Palestinians have died and in Gaza.
According to who?
This is according to UN numbers. Okay?
But the UN,
they're getting their numbers from Hamas, no doubt. Okay. But where do you draw the line? At what point?
You'll notice that everyone but Israel lies. Whenever you talk to a Zionist, every other piece of information is from liars. That's the way they get around this. They just no information counts except what we say.
You stop killing innocent civilians. And 50% of the people that live in Gaza are under 18, meaning they're children. Okay? At what point, how many lives have to be killed in order to get Hamas out of there? Is there any number in mind?
I don't know. Maybe we should, we should contact Elon Musk, because Elon Musk has allowed for Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, to have an X account. And so I think that what we should do is we should try to.
You too.
We should get. Yeah, but I'm not a terrorist, right?
Debatable.
The DOJ thinks I am, right? Because I support President Trump. But
Well, I mean, you're supporting the killing of
seriously,
babies, so I
why
don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't we call?
But she's not actually killing them.
Why don't we?
No.
Why don't
You're
we
just
call,
supporting it.
How many innocent lives need to be killed?
Your
Yes, go
question.
ahead.
Why don't we call Elon Musk and ask him to contact Ismail Haniyeh, who he is allowing to have a platform on X, okay? And we can then.
Notice which side is calling for deplatforms now. Is that the woke side usually, or is that the conservative side?
We can Skype or Zoom Ismail Haniyeh in from Qatar, where he's being protected right now. And we can say, hey, how many more innocent people need to die? When are you going to move your headquarters from underneath this hospital where babies are in incubators? That's not a question for me. That's a question for Hamas.
You dodged
I'm
the
not
question
dodging
again.
the
Yes,
question.
you are.
That's not.
Okay,
And
so
I
is the
really
standard,
I don't trust
Laura,
those numbers. I want to finish this
Is the
statement.
standard that people who kill innocent human beings shouldn't be allowed on Twitter? Is that the standard? Like, just give me the objective standard.
That's not what I'm saying.
No,
why
that's
should
not it.
I have to answer the question about when enough is enough? When Hamas is obliterated, that is when enough
Okay,
will be
so
enough.
let's say in order to obliterate Hamas, and let's even say it's all on them because they're hiding in the basement of buildings where innocent people are. But let's say in order to eliminate Hamas, I'm not denying that. Yes, no, what I was referring to was the refugee center where there was one suspected Hamas member and they killed like 17 people or something like that. But let's just say hypothetically, Hamas is embedded itself. They're doing this human shield thing where they're underneath buildings with innocent civilians, and in order to kill Hamas, it means 50,000 innocent men, women, and children have to die. You support that?
I don't support innocent people being killed. It's innocent
But if
people
it's what's
die in war.
necessary, if it's what's necessary to take out Hamas, is that what needs to happen?
I'm not answering how many people
I know
need
you
to
won't
die.
answer it.
Because,
I know.
because it's a hypothetical.
Because it will reveal the point.
No, it's not going to reveal the point.
That's why you won't
is,
answer it.
Because I'm not going to decide how many lives need to be lost. That is a question for Hamas.
But the question is, Israel
That's a question for Hamas.
No, okay,
It's
fine,
not Israel.
fine. So let's just take,
Israel is not trying
for the
to kill
sake
these
of
people.
argument. Let's take for the
You're
sake.
asking me to decide
Hamas
how
is
many
savages.
people should be killed.
Hamas is savages. It's all on them. Everything's their fault. But Israel is still conducting these operations. So if it takes 50,000 men and women and children who are not Hamas to die, is it worth it? Is that necessary to take them out? And watch, you just won't answer the question.
It's not that I'm not answering the question.
You're
Israel
literally
has been
not answering the question.
Israel has been very strategic.
Believe it or not, that's almost the number they've gotten to so far. And I think if they keep counting, they're probably going to reach that number of dead Gazans.
And they have been very deliberate in trying to identify Hamas targets to reduce civilian casualties. And now, because of this, Hamas has decided to put their headquarters underneath high civilian, populated areas. And so I'm going to, double down on what I said. If people have a problem with civilian deaths and they have a problem with innocent children dying and innocent women and innocent men dying, and we all should be appalled at the idea of innocent children dying. It's terrible. The images, whether they be Jewish babies, Muslim babies, okay, all babies' lives matter. I think that we can agree here. I'm very pro-life. I will say that. The reality is that you're not seeing mass condemnation from people when it comes to Hamas putting their headquarters underneath these densely populated areas. And I want to understand
I think there's
why.
tons of people condemning Hamas, and the idea that I'm not condemning.
But let me just add this too. We also need to really be critical of the information that we're seeing coming out of the media as it relates to the numbers, how many babies or how many civilians are dying. I don't know if you saw this, but Senator Tom Cotton, he actually just called for the DOJ to, carry out an investigation because it was revealed that CNN, AP, Reuters, and the New York Times had their journalists embedded with Hamas.
If the moderator doesn't step in soon, I'm going to have to change my title from a debate to a monologue.
On the back of their motorcycles with their GoPros as they were attacking and killing innocent Jews and Israelis. And so how can we really trust the information that's coming out of the media when, it's now coming out that the media has their own Hamas terrorists, confirming what we all know, that the media is the real terrorist organization that is wreaking havoc, not only in our country and sowing discord here in America.
As if the media is not owned by people of your persuasion, ma'am. Please stop lying to me.
but all around the world. Additionally, you said the numbers.
Try to say something bad about Israel on TikTok and see where your account goes.
I want to ask Dave a
You
question.
said the
let me
numbers
get
that come
in
from the
here a
UN is
little bit,
no, but well, you need to know this as well. They found United Nations and UNICEF medical kits on the back of the motorcycles and on the backs, like with the backpacks, right? And with inside the backpacks of these Hamas jihadist killers who were going into these kibbutzes and murdering people. And so I take offense, not only as a journalist, but also as a Jew and somebody who's pro-Israel, that you're citing UN numbers. I mean, these people are literally giving medical supplies to Islamic terrorists. We cannot trust numbers coming out of the Gaza Ministry of Health when the Gaza Ministry of Health is literally controlled and operated by Hamas.
Would you at least agree that whether it's a 10-1 or a 12-1 or a 5-1, they are winning this emphatically?
Israel.
Yes, I mean as far as the body count
well,
goes.
you're not going to go up against the IDF and expect to win. And so I think that Hamas is getting what they deserve.
But Dave, how does Israel? What are they supposed to do? Meaning, all right, so Amnesty International, you want to agree with them or not? I'm not here to fact check every single little stat. But during the 2009 investigation, they found that Hamas stored munitions in hospitals and schools. Basically, they're based out of there. The Wall Street Journal came out and said basically the center of the war is in fact this Al-Shifa hospital. So how should Israel deal with the fact that they're shooting missiles, bombs out of hospitals and schools at innocent civilians? How should Israel react to that?
Okay, so there's several things to that, but I'm just going to start by just pointing out that it's like, I don't know, Laura, there's been several times in this debate where you just won't respond to what I'm saying and you just kind of won't answer it. So I'm not going to do that. What should the response be, say, to October 7th? I would say that primarily, first of all, there were active hostages involved immediately. So I would say the first thing, much like what you do when, look, if a hostage, if there's a bank robber and he has a machine gun and he takes 12 hostages up with him, the response is not blow up the building. The response is you first negotiate, try to get every innocent person saved, and then you go and try to enact justice against that person while trying to not kill as few innocent people as possible in the process.
Makes sense.
But
That's only if you view those hostages as humans, though. If you view them as something else, then you can do whatever you want. And that's why they're having this problem.
immediate Israeli response should have been this. Look, it should have been fortify your borders, have a true investigation to find out how the hell it is possible that the most prepared fortress of a country allowed the most surveilled area in the world, which is Gaza, to commit what the most obvious attack would have been. Like, this was not 9/11. This was not like, I know they could say George W. Bush got that one piece of intelligence that said planes into buildings, but planes into buildings was still a pretty wild thing to actually have happen. People crossing over the border from Gaza to kill Israelis is what you always had your eye on. So how in the hell did this possibly happen?
I told you earlier how it happened.
Well, okay, one second. How in the hell did this possibly happen? How was the response time so long? What exactly happened here? Let's look into some of the
They're alluding to the fact that Israel let it happen. It's kind of common knowledge now that they did let it happen so that they could get what they wanted, which was this genocide. And they're getting it. They got it. So that's what Dave's trying to point out here.
more gruesome.
You can't tell me you can put a bomb in a pager and put it in a terrorist's hand somehow with your intelligence, but you can't tell that people are just going to come across and shoot people?
Details about like what really went on, what some of the firsthand accounts are, and then you should absolutely hold Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party accountable for this strategy of propping up Hamas and funding them that blew up in their faces. This is just what the Times of Israel piece the day after, I believe it was either on the 8th or the 9th, it was like either 1 or 2 days afterwards said, well, Benjamin Netanyahu's strategy blew up in his face.
That's a long translation. But then get back to the fact that they're based in hospitals and schools. What do you do with that?
Well, look,
totally
in the
understand.
Same, well, look, in the same sense,
but they're still shooting missiles and bombs from
Let's
hospitals.
pretend for a second that you value innocent Palestinian life as much as you value, let's say, innocent American life. Okay? Just pretend for a second that we had the same standard. If there was a SWAT team, let's say a murderer, serial killer, he's on the run from the cops, and he's held up in a school, and they're like, okay, he's in this elementary school, and then the local police or your state troopers or even the FBI said, all right, well, here's our plan. We're going to blow up the school. How'd you feel about that? Would you say, oh, that's law enforcement. They're doing a great job? No, you would say that is unacceptable. And in fact, if they did that, you would not sit here and pretend that they cared about human rights or they really were trying to not kill kids, but there was one bad guy in there, right? But see how that's totally acceptable when it's in Palestine? Now, all I'm saying is this. Look, even if you want to come at from the most pro-Israeli point of view, where you have no value on Palestinian life, let's say you don't care, whatever. We got to kill Hamas, so we're going to kill all those kids if you have to.
I never said that.
I'm not saying that. Listen to what I'm actually saying. Let's say that's your attitude. Still, go in with your eyes open and understand what that's going to be perceived as from the other side. Because if anybody ever had that attitude with my kids, I know what my attitude toward them would be. And you can say, oh, this is just, Islam is a crazy religion and we're going to blame them for everyone. I don't know. I'd feel the exact same way if anyone had that attitude with my kids. I'd be ready to join up with whoever the craziest group was who wanted to go get those people back. And likewise, you see the same thing after October 7th. What is everybody like you who supports Israel saying? Well, I'm ready to join up to go kill as many of them as we got to kill to get rid of this problem. Maybe there's a lot more similarities than differences between these two sides.
I'd like to counter this because even prior to the attacks on October 7th, okay, you see that there is essentially the equivalent of what would be considered Sesame Street, right? TV programming here for children in America. They have in Gaza for children, Palestinian children, in which they have these little cartoon characters that dress up like birds and they teach them, oh, what do you do? What do? We kill the Yahud, right? We kill the Jew. And then there's videos, there's hours of videos that show kindergarten simulations where kindergarten graduation ceremonies show 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds carrying guns, okay, and whether they're fake guns or not, okay, they are simulating hostage scenarios where they go in and one of them pretends to be an Israeli. They are teaching and indoctrinating these children. And by the way, okay, the Gaza Ministry of Health is actually counting children as combatants, okay? And that's something that needs to be discussed. So you want to pull this whole, what about the children thing? What about the children, the innocent children, these poor children that are being blown up and being killed? Yes, let's talk about how this is a violation of the Geneva Convention. Okay, you want to talk about actual war crimes?
Yeah.
Making a child an enemy combatant, okay? Making a child, wear a vest and wear a keffiyeh and pick up a gun.
Crime.
This is what
no
they're doing.
Question.
And the IDF has actually provided. Let me just finish this stuff really quick.
Sure.
No, but I'll just say.
Yeah, don't interrupt her. She only gets to interrupt you, Dave. That's all she's done since she sat down, but you can't stop her one time. There is no moderation in this debate.
There's video evidence, and I'm happy to show you. And obviously, we're only doing 90 minutes here tonight, but I really implore people. There's a great site. It's called Memory. It's MEMRI, and they have hours of this stuff cataloged. Mm-hmm. And there's hours, I'm sure you've seen some of these videos, of Palestinian mothers and women saying, we have so many children. We have 8 children. And the reason why we have children is because our children are meant to die, to become martyrs for the sake of killing the Jews.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's what they say.
It's horrible.
And so is that to blame for Israel? They want their kids to go die.
Well, some of them do, and it's horrible. There's also rhetoric on the other side, and I think we've all probably seen this on both sides since October 7th, where you have one side talking about flattening Gaza. They're all savages. Kill all of them if we have to. Drive all of them out of their land if we have to. You have another side who's like celebrating at times like what happened on October 7th. All of that is horrific. But let's not pretend that it's only happening on one side and that there's not also something to be said for what was being done to these people to begin with. And might it be, look, just try to imagine, right? And this was the great point that all of the true America First conservatives and in their best tradition of the sense always made. Like, Pat Buchanan, who he's like a...
Ran for president in 1996.
He's kind of like Donald Trump if he read books and knew stuff. So Pat Buchanan, he's always said that, look, he goes, terrorism is the price of empire. And if you want to have an empire, if you don't want to pay that price, you have to get rid of the empire. He also talked about how Gaza was essentially a concentration camp of the Israelis. He predicted, what was it, like 15 years ago? Have you seen this clip that was going super viral? I think because the time of the age of the kids almost lined up. But he was talking about how there were like, what always happens in Gaza. Israel killed, several innocent people on some targeted strike or something like that. And he was arguing about it on MSNBC. There's a different world when MSNBC would let Pat Buchanan be on. And
totally
he's arguing about it. And he goes, look, what do you think her brother and her cousin and her nephew is going to, who are they going to grow up to be?
Right.
Who are they going to grow up to? And it was almost like the exact amount of time. He said, like, where are they going to be in 15 years? And it was something like 15 years before this event happened. But look, we've got to be, this is what Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan and all of the best of the paleo-conservatives and paleo-libertarians always recognized, all the true America First people recognized, was that you cannot do whatever you want abroad and think that you're not going to create hatred against yourself. As Pat Buchanan said about Osama bin Laden, when George W. Bush said he hates us because we're free, it's not as if, this was Pat Buchanan's line, which I always loved. He goes, it's not as if Osama bin Laden stumbled in the desert somewhere upon the Bill of Rights and was just like, oh my God, what? They have a right to a speedy trial? Let me finish my point. They have a right to a speedy trial? I hate their freedom. What were his complaints? His complaints were that we prop up Israel and they abuse the Palestinians, that we have bases in Saudi Arabia, that we have the sustained bombing campaign against the Iraqis, and that we prop up brutal dictators in Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Those were their complaints. After 9/11, Colin Powell, the wisest member of George W. Bush's administration, who still deserves all of the evil things in the world to happen to him because he still went and lied us into the war in Iraq at the UN, even though he knew it was all BS. His response to 9/11 in 2003 was to push for a two-state solution with the Palestinians and the Israelis, because he knew this is the cause of so much of the terrorism that we deal with. You simply have to give these people their natural rights. You can't sit here and say, you can have a state when Israel has decided you've met X, Y, and Z, which, by the way, you're never going to meet. And then, by the way, when they're talking to their own people, they talk about how they're trying to undermine that anyway. You have to do this. And you know what happened? Is George W. Bush bailed on it because he was basically convinced by House members that you would alienate your evangelical Christian voting base. It'll be a one-term.
Here's the question for both.
9/11 was in 2001. Okay?
Yeah.
The Hamas covenant was 1988. So we can't exactly use 9/11 as a cop-out for why, the Palestinians and these children. No, but I'm just saying that a lot of people will say, oh, well look at the war on terror. And I've been critical of it as well, but this is 1988 that we're talking about, okay? And so I don't really necessarily think that it's fair to say that, sure, if you watch your mother and your father get blown up, you're probably going to have a spirit of revenge and you're going to have deep-seated hatred and want to kill. Anybody would want to kill somebody that killed their family member, right? I think that that's just human nature. Whether it's, a drunk driver, whether it's an act of terrorism, whether it's a murder, whether it's, whatever.
But she can't understand why they have terrorists who are trying to get at the Israeli people. It's so weird. She can only see it whenever the other side does it.
It may be.
Vengeance is
it's vengeance, okay? Vengeance.
So do you think that plays a part in the Palestinians' hatred for Israelis?
I think that it may play a part when people are
that's
losing.
Something.
I think
that's something.
that
We're getting there.
You're getting there. You can at least admit that maybe that's part of it.
But I also think that it's a serious problem when, from the moment a baby is born to a Palestinian, they are being taught Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before.
Hey, look. We just had a moment. We just had a moment of some agreement. So I think that's disgusting also. So look at that. Look, we had a moment of agreement.
I don't think there's ever going to be peace I don't ever think there's going to be peace
acknowledge
between
the agreement,
these people.
Laura.
Literally, let me just give you a second. So you acknowledge that what Israel has done to the Palestinians might be at least somewhat of a contributing factor to them hating them.
It's not,
Look,
I'm not
let's
saying
say
just what they've done.
9/11 happened to us, right?
I think a lot of what Palestinians have done to Israelis as well, because there are
I know.
I
know it's tough for you to admit but we came to a moment of agreement there.
Listen, innocent Jews
9/11
who are being killed
yes,
too.
no one's denying that. This is like, okay, fine.
And the innocent Jews are the only ones that matter to her.
9/11 happened to us. What was the American attitude after 9/11? We gave George W. Bush a blank check.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do. Drop bombs on whoever the hell you want to drop bombs on, because we are pissed off because we got hit and someone else has to suffer for this. Or was it really the people who did it? Is it just innocent people who are dying?
Now we're suffering. We're the terrorists.
Okay.
And that's why y'all all have to be on the watch for a false flag coming out in the next few days. I'm telling you, they're going to try and make it seem like Iran is doing something. It's going to happen, and I know exactly who's doing it, and I think all y'all do too.
The terrorists in our country.
The Muslim world has had 1,000 9/11s. And if you sit here and go, look, just imagine, try to imagine, be really genuine here, okay? Because we're going to see it. We're so much better than the Islamic world. And you know what? I generally do think we are. But
Agreed.
Even us, who's so much better than them, imagine not one 9/11, but 1,000 9/11s happened here. What would that look like? And then let's say after 1,000 9/11s happened here, let's say whoever, Iran did it. And then Iran invades and they overthrow our government. And they prop up their own government. And now they rule us. What do you think the toughest right-wing militia members in America would be doing? They'd be throwing Molotov cocktails through their government building. They'd be running up, suicide bombing themselves. And I bet they'd yell something about Jesus before they did it too, because they'd probably start clinging to their religion. So I'm just saying that, like, if we're unwilling in this debate, in this divide, to make a real effort to put ourselves in their shoes and go, what would we do in that situation? If you imagine, listen, this is 1948 is not that long ago, okay? It's our grandpas.
We're talking about 1,400 years here.
No,
We're not talking about 1948. We're talking about 1,400 years of this savagery and barbarism.
You are, but I'm talking about something else. So anyways, what I'm saying is 1948 was not that long ago, okay? The people, my grandfather
75
fought
years ago.
in World War II, okay? Like he was, he remembers this very vividly, okay? Those people were kicked out of their homes. This was like, look, I'll say this from the Jewish perspective, okay? And there's a big difference. Now, you may not have this as much as I do, but in general, I would say, for Jews, this is true, that our parents' generation are way more connected to like a serious form of anti-Semitism than the current Jewish generation is today. Like there's something like, my mother was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. It's a little bit different than being the grandson of a Holocaust survivor.
My grandfather was arrested by Nazis when he was a medical school student. And,
right.
and the Jewish students were expelled from medical school. And his medical diploma has a swastika on it.
Yes, so just making the point that, you're right, this is my family's history too, and most Jewish people's family's history, okay? And they were like, if you read the writing of the early Zionists, okay, which is like the late 1800s, it's all a reaction against the pogroms, which are, I mean, you ever read about like pogroms in Eastern Europe? I mean, it's just like the most horrific thing.
The Jewish ghettos.
They're happening all over again right now.
Well, okay, anyway. It's actually more disturbing than reading about the Holocaust. Even though the Holocaust was on like such a larger number, it's something about it, like it's more systematized. And so it almost like removes you from but you read about the pogroms. The pogroms were just basically like your neighbors all decided they were going to come in and rip your children apart and rape your wife in front of you and make you watch and then beat you to death. And this happened over and over and over again.
This was going on where exactly?
In Eastern Europe, most of the old Russian Empire, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, all these areas.
And it's happening now,
horrific.
too.
And this
Is
was
this
it's not happening now.
No,
like
it actually is, though. Did you see
not like it was happening
but did
then.
you see
Let's
the
not
videos?
trivialize
No,
that.
I'm not. The Chechens, they literally stormed the airport, okay, in one of the
Who did they
one of
catch?
the Russian territories. And what you had is all these Muslim men. There were tons of videos of this. I'm surprised you didn't see it. And you had like thousands, okay?
Yeah,
thousands of Muslim men stormed the airport. They took over airport security.
They thought an Israeli flight was coming in. They were wrong. It wasn't.
And they were going to kill every single person on that plane. They said, we're going to kill them.
Okay, but anyway, Laura, you're just interrupting.
That is.
Well, no, it's not, because it didn't end up happening. But anyway, it's not.
They would have killed
Yes,
them.
quite possibly. But anyway, this all ties in actually to my.
All they do is derail. Like he was on a roll, and they had to break that up with some story about some shit that didn't happen.
Yeah,
but anyway, so the response, that Zionism was a response to that. And what's really interesting is if you read the early Zionists, they didn't talk that much about the Arabs. And first off, none of them had ever been to Palestine. They didn't really know, but they actually talked, when they did mention the Arabs, they talked about them in kind of friendly terms because they liked the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was kind of cool. They let Jews work. They let them practice their religion as they wanted to. They were certainly much better than the Russian Empire was to them. And so it was almost like not like an afterthought, but it was like, look, we're reacting to that. And so we're going here. And whatever has to happen to the people who are happening, we need our own state because we can't live like this anymore, which is a reasonable conclusion, at least needing your own state from that. And then, of course, after the Holocaust, it was like, game over. We're doing whatever we have to do this. I'm just making the point that, look, people react to this level of violence. And if you want to understand what's going on in the world, if you want to understand what motivated Osama bin Laden to hit us on 9/11, if you want to understand what motivates Hamas to hit Israel, you got to look at this or you're never going to get it. And this is the final point I'll make, because when you talk about these pogroms are happening all over the world, look, the point of 9/11, Osama bin Laden's goal, which he explicitly wrote about, was what? It wasn't just to kill some Americans in the Twin Towers. It wasn't just that he thought if we took down the towers, that would destroy the United States of America. His expressed goal was to get us to invade Afghanistan. He was trying to recreate what we trained him to do in 1979 to the Soviet Union, to lure us into Afghanistan, to bankrupt us. And look at this. And then George W. Bush said, I'll do you one better, Osama. I'll invade Iraq also.
Yeah.
And look at us. Look, we're 20 years later, and I'm not saying our country hasn't exactly collapsed, but I bet all three of us and everyone in this room and everyone watching here would agree. Man, our country sure is in trouble.
Well, you're also kind of forgetting the part where
I want you to picture how much better our lives would be if we didn't have to spend those billions to trillions, if you count them all together, trillions of dollars in the Middle East, and we just took that money and put it into education. We might be able to have kids who could actually grow up and be able to vote like they know something instead of just watching whatever's on TV and voting for whoever tells them to. They tell them to. Our life has gone down so bad from where it could be just because of all these wars we had to spend so much of our money on that really didn't do shit for us. It did nothing but benefit Israel. Nothing.
where he wrote about, Islamic global domination.
Yes, he was an Islamist. Yes. No,
you conveniently leave that part out.
No,
though.
I'm not leaving anything out. I'm just focusing on something else that really matters. Obviously, he was an Islamist. Like, what is that? Yes, of course. Osama bin Laden was a radical Islamist, fundamentalist. The point is that there was a strategy here, okay? And with this Hamas attack, there's also a strategy. And you know what the strategy of this was? This wasn't just a bunch of barbarians. This was, they were barbarians, but this was a very sophisticated attack from land, air, and sea, right? All coordinated against the fortress of the world, and they pulled it off. And what was the point of this attack?
They want us to go to war with Iran.
To get Israel to do exactly what they're doing right now and turn the whole world opinion against them, which is exactly what's going on. You're seeing marches in the hundreds of thousands across America, North America, Europe, the entire Muslim world. Listen, even from the most pro-Israel point of view, I hope everyone here recognizes the Israel's existence is under more threat right now than it has ever been in my lifetime. I'm 40. There is a real threat right now that other Arab countries are going to get involved. This is something that hasn't happened since the 60s and 70s. There's a real chance of it right now because 100% of their populations are against this. And as much as, by the way, I might disagree a lot with what's being said at some of these anti-Israel protests as well. I'm sure all of us don't like some of the rhetoric, but it would behoove Israelis, and it would behoove people who are pro-Israel to consider the possibility that maybe your rhetoric is actually somewhat right. I see all of these people who support Israel, and they constantly say to me, they go, look, Israel is this tiny little dot in a sea of Muslims. And these people would tear us all limb from limb if they had the shot at that. And also, by the way, Europe and America, there is a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism that is right under the surface. And if you just scratch it, it's all going to pop up. And what they're all saying is over the last few weeks, we're seeing it. See? Proof. Okay, so let's just take for granted. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but let's just say that's all true.
That's only true if you allow everything to be anti-Semitic. If you allow saying, I don't want to finance another country, they call you an anti-Semite. That's the only way that they can make that make sense.
Then to quote Walter White, maybe Israelis' best course of action is to tread lightly here and consider the fact that the world is sending you a message saying, you may be okay with killing tens of thousands of Palestinian babies. They are not going to take this.
The world is not sending a message, okay? I talked about
Your response to him.
And I highlighted this, okay?
And then, by the way, we're going to go right to the Twitter questions, X questions, and we'll take some.
We can check the polls now and see where the world sits on Israel. I'm pretty sure the side that I'm on is the side that pretty much agrees. Not that I'm saying that means you're right, but I am saying that the world is seeing it.
The world is not responding to this, okay? The Muslim nations, obviously granted, okay, when you have majority Muslim nations, and these are Muslims, they believe in the word of the Quran, okay? They are Jew haters, okay? If they want to call themselves devout Muslims, to be a devout Muslim is to be a Jew hater, okay? Some people may not want to hear that, but that's the truth. If you consider yourself to be a devout Muslim, you are a Jew hater, because the Quran, there are actually more calls for the killing of Jews in the Quran than Hitler's Mein Kampf. Did you know that?
No, I've never read either of those books.
Yeah, but there's more. There's actually there's
I'll
more
lend you my
calls.
copy.
There's more calls for the killing of Jews in the Quran than Hitler's Mein Kampf. And it's important, right? Because would you allow for a member of Congress to take their oath of office on Hitler's Mein Kampf?
Obviously not.
So why is it acceptable for a member of Congress to take their oath of office on the Quran?
Because it's totally different.
No, I don't think it is, right? And this is why you have now Rashida Tlaib being censured, of course. And just today, actually, before coming on to this debate, it was uncovered that she's been a member of a pro-Hamas group where they glorify Hamas martyrs, okay, for the last 6 years, which, you know, is obviously including the time that she's been serving in Congress. We should not surrender. And so the fact
Are you saying that a Muslim should not be able to serve in the U.S. Congress?
I'm saying that it should be illegal to take your oath of office on the Quran. I think that
So
it
then
should
if
be
a
illegal.
Muslim,
I almost agree with her. Not like you seem, though. I think anyone that has an alliance or an allegiance to a different country or a different whatever, something somewhere else, then you shouldn't be allowed to serve in our Congress. And that would include all the fucking Zionists in the picture right behind me.
took their oath on the Bible,
Yeah,
that would be
They should
okay.
take your oath on the Constitution.
But so why would that be?
still
Could
have the
they
same
still be a
beliefs,
Muslim?
though.
This is the
Yeah.
dumbest, most superficial
It's
thing.
not, it's
So if
not.
they just don't
It's
take
not.
the oath, then they won't hate Jews anymore or something?
No, but I'm trying to make the point that we shouldn't have any jihadists in Congress because their views and what they believe in is completely incompatible
But
with
that's all
Western
Muslims, right?
civilization. Well, if it's
That's what
if
you just said.
Yeah, look. And
So why would you run away from Adam's point? Should
I'm
Muslims
not
be
running
allowed
away.
to serve it? No,
Well,
you just don't want to say it.
I'm not going to say that we should ban all Muslims from serving in Congress,
But you just said all Muslims hate Jews.
if you were a devout Muslim. If you were
Okay,
a
so
devout
all,
Muslim,
should all devout Muslims be banned from serving in Congress?
well, if I could have my way, I would probably say yes.
Okay, there.
I would
Well, at
say
least
yes.
you didn't dodge the
I'm not even
question.
going to
All right.
dodge the question.
First
I
one.
would just say yes.
Finally then.
Because
All
I
right.
don't want anti-Semites having access to classified information, and I don't want anti-Semites
So that's
serving
the
in positions
standard.
of
You
power.
can't hate Jews.
That's why the
and
Congress
be
looks
in
like
Congress.
this.
You can't be a Hamas supporter. You can't
you
openly
just said
support Islamic
anti-Semites.
terrorism.
Okay.
No, I didn't say anti-Semites. I don't have
what
a
you just
problem
said.
necessarily with the viewpoints, right? I have thick skin. I can get over some of the things that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar have said about Jewish people. But what I don't like is their open association with groups like ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, which have all been documented and proven. Okay,
Listen,
and it is true.
Barack
they
Obama
refuse.
funded ISIS.
I'm not talking about
and
Barack. I'm
John
talking
McCain
about these
supported
elected
him doing.
officials.
This is so close to what the Democrats were trying to do, where you have to be oh shit, I had a brain fart.
And
I got this
so
one.
we
Get
want
it.
to talk
What
about
actually matters.
anti-Semitism. This is why
You're talking- 'cause you're
you have January 6th political protesters right now who are rotting away in jail cells because they went inside the Capitol. But it's okay for Rashida Tlaib because she wants to cry Islamophobia and wants to pretend that she's a victim because she's a Palestinian, she's a Muslim, and we can have a full-blown Hamas surrection. This is unacceptable. So when you talk about scratching the surface, no, politicians on both sides of the
That's what it was. This is just like the liberals who say that it's not enough to just not be a racist. You have to be anti-racist, right? You have to actually go after the people who you think are racist or whatever. That's very similar to what they're saying. Like you just have to, you can't be somebody who hates the Jews and still get into Congress. You're not allowed to think that. That's wrong think, right? Just like in 1984. You can't think things even.
aisle, Republican and Democrat, have given it a pass. You didn't need to scratch the surface. These people were always Jew haters from the beginning. I exposed it 6 years ago and paid the price of being debanked. I was demonetized.
And she decides who's a Jew hater and who's not, right? Saying you don't want to support Israel, Jew hater. That's in their mind. That's how they've already got these lines drawn. So if you don't go with them on what they want to spend your money on, you're an anti-Semite, and you can't serve Congress no more. You can't do all these things because you just have to think what they want you to think. Mind control.
I was shut down on every single social media platform. I was banned from food delivery apps for trying to blow the whistle and prevent something like this from happening
all right.
6 years ago.
That sucks that you got kicked off social
but
media
I'm
sites,
trying
but
to
that has
say we
nothing to
have
do
a-
with the point I was
But
making.
it
and
does
it's just
have
kind
it
of
does
like
have a
all-
point
it's all
because
this
you want
like
to
dancing
scratch
around the issue.
the scratch.
What happened to Nick Fuentes? They took away his ability to have a bank because he was anti-Semitic. So they had to take away his banking ability. You can't even cash a check.
The surface
Listen,
of
you're
it.
talking
These are
about-
issues that
look,
have
the
existed.
squad-
They're ideological
All right.
issues.
Well, he's
Laura,
basically
the
saying
squad
that tread
sucks.
lightly,
The
and you're
squad
saying double
sucks.
down.
They're
I
a
think
bunch of
that's the crux
idiots.
of it.
The squad sucks. They're a bunch of idiots. They're also pretty irrelevant. They're like the four members of the Democratic
They're not
Party
irrelevant.
that
They're
never
literally
really get
driving
Okay,
policy
they're-
and shaping
no, they're
Joe Biden's.
not. Oh my
Joe
God,
Biden's
it's such
administration.
nonsense.
I
dude.
wish-
Dick Cheney is who drives policy, not Rashida
And the
Tlaib.
power-
and the
But
policy
AOC
my point-
does have her finger on the pulse
My-
of a lot of the
Well,
woke
yeah,
left.
she's
So, I mean,
she's got a
it's not like-
popular TikTok
Adam,
channel,
I will
but I'm
say
talking about
my
the
point-
actual policy that gets through.
We need to
the
condemn the
policy has
Democrats'
been
platforming
funding
of these things.
Israel. Who's the country who we've given, with the exception of Ukraine, just for the last year and a half? Who's the country who we've given the most foreign aid to?
What policy are they even talking about? AOC came out with the Green New Deal and everybody laughed at it and it didn't do shit. What policies have they gotten enacted? Please tell me.
Right,
It's
and
Israel.
speaking
by
of Ukraine,
far. Who's next
As we send billions of dollars to Israel every year. Like, who's getting shit done? I don't think it's AOC.
after that? Oh, the countries that we pay off to be friends with Israel.
speaking of
this
Ukraine,
idea that the government
Egypt.
Hamas
is
terrorists, the Hamas terrorists,
And you
were
can't
showing,
respond to that either,
No,
I'm
but
sure,
speaking
but-
of Ukraine, I'm opposed to all money going to Ukraine. I don't know if you saw
But
these
that's not
videos
the
as
point
well.
of what I was saying. You're completely dodging the point here.
Yep.
You're trying to paint this picture that the U.S. Federal government is run by these people who hate Israel, when meanwhile, Israel is the country who's received more foreign aid than any other country.
Our
and the
country
other
right
ones,
now is currently run by a bunch of Jew haters. I will say that.
and they still give Israel
I
more
will
foreign
say
aid than
that
everyone. What a weird coincidence.
Israel, you said, and I agree with you, in that I've never seen
Hate me all you like. Send the checks this way, though.
such a threat to the existence of Israel in my life. I'm 30 years old. You're 40 or 10 years older than me, of course. But it's alarming. But it's not just alarming. I live in America. I'm concerned about America first. But there's 15 million Jews left on this planet, okay? And there's 2 billion Muslims. And with the amount of Jew hatred that's taking place and the fact that we can't even get every single member of Congress to agree to censure a member of Congress who supports Hamas, which I just read their charter says they want to kill Jews and they want Israel to completely be obliterated. What does that mean for the global population
do
of
you think
Jewry?
America
You're talking about
first
Rashida Tlaib, who was censured by 100%
Yes,
of Republicans,
right.
but only
Like,
20% of
Hasn't-
Democrats.
but only
Okay, fine,
20%
but they
of
didn't vote to
Democrats.
censure her.
No, but
What's
you're
the
making,
policy?
But you're
But
making
listen,
light
guys,
of this.
why
It's
are you-
serious.
I'm not making light of
hold on,
anything.
pause.
2 billion
We
Muslims
want to
in
give
the
a
world
shout out
and
to our
15
friends, to our friends watching on X.
15
Guys,
million
say hi.
Jews.
They're watching you. Go ahead, say hi.
I'm aware. Hello, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you.
Okay. They have questions. See, we're all
right.
interactive here.
I'm just saying we're very close to another Holocaust. Then we'll get to the questions.
Yeah,
We are very
nobody
close.
wants to
History
see that.
repeats
And I
itself.
think he's basically saying tread lightly, and you're saying
what starts
double
with
down.
the Jews
I
doesn't
get
end
it.
with the Jews. And I advise everybody to pay attention
I get
because
it.
they may think it's fun and games now, but they'll come for the Jews. They'll eradicate the 15 million Jews left on this planet. And then who are they going to come for next?
None of this is happening. Let's get
It is
real.
happening.
As if anyone would come for you. Like, you position yourself in the middle of all of your enemies, and now we've got to fight to keep them all back. You fucking did that to yourselves. We didn't tell you to go fucking pick a spot in the middle of all the Muslim countries you can find.
It is happening.
What's
Right.
happening? The idea that listen, Gaza's the only ones at real threat of being eradicated right now, and the only threat to the state of Israel is if they continue down this path.
Well, I mean,
and
if you
that's the
get
truth.
Lebanon, Syria, Iran involved,
Yes, that's right.
that's what you're
Yes,
looking to avoid, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
As if Israel is trying to get Lebanon involved. They're trying to attack them and take their land. Because now it's not enough to get Iran off the board. They're trying to get Lebanon too, and they're looking at Turkey with blood eyes. Like, it's scary what they're thinking.
But here's the
We should
question.
all
Here's from the Human Reaction on X. He says, question, this is probably for you. For those fiscal conservatives concerned about growing debt and reckless spending, but also supporting U.S. financial support of Israel, how do you reconcile the effect of additional military spending on U.S. national debt and taxpayer interest?
Well, I've already said that I'm completely against the continued resolution that Speaker Mike Johnson just put forth. I've been very critical of the GOP breaking their promises when it comes to not just eliminating aid to Ukraine, but also adding additional aid to Israel. I think that there's ways that we can combat this terror threat and stand with Israel and also combat anti-Semitism without sending billions more dollars to Israel, Ukraine, or any other issue.
Do you support the foreign aid to Israel?
Do
Should
I
we cut all of
support-
it?
I think that we shouldn't be cutting all of the aid to Israel because we
Why?
have a joint relationship with Israel. And it's a misconception that they just get that aid for absolutely nothing, right? There's military agreements. We have shared intelligence operations.
Right. So we only benefit, the people who make our bombs. That's who helps. And I don't guess you think that they funnel any of that money back to the politicians who are agreeing to send them this money. It's all a scam. They're trying not to see it.
For example, and I will say, speaking on that point, I do agree with what you said earlier. I didn't get a chance to say it, but I 100% agree with you that there needs to be an investigation into how the biggest, surveillance state, and they openly, Israel brags about how sophisticated their surveillance state is. There needs to be an investigation into this intelligence failure because it also impacts our national security because we know that these operatives are coming across the U.S. border and we share
Well, with
intelligence.
Biden's open border
We
policy,
share
they're coming through.
intelligence, and
They've
so-
caught.
It's funny she said that. Yeah, their intelligence is dog shit, right? So why are we going to war with Iran based off of solely that now? That's the only, there's more. Hey, we got weapons of mass destruction in Iran now. They moved them from Iraq. So we just got to go start another 20-year war there. It's so crazy to see these people and the mental gymnastics they have to do to get through their day.
many people from.
And so I would much rather
Muslim
prefer,
countries.
right, that we put those billions of dollars and militarize our own southern border so that we can keep these same Hamas and Hezbollah and IRGC operatives who are trying to attack Israel out of our country.
So,
Can I just
hope
answer the question?
Well, let me just answer the question very directly. I mean, yeah, it's completely insane. Cut all foreign aid. We are $30+ trillion in debt. The idea that we are taxing, that Ron Paul always said, right? Foreign aid is taxing poor people in rich countries to send to rich people in poor countries. And the fact that we're still doing this while our country is collapsing and we're falling apart is insane. But that's not even the worst part of it. Foreign aid really isn't a huge driver of the national debt, to be honest. The worst part of it is that we inherit this tremendous moral hazard in these parts of the world where, look, so Ukraine, which maybe we would agree on this, Ukraine, if America hadn't written them a blank check, would have been forced to negotiate with
For and with the people. Can you send that to me on X? I'll check it out. I don't know what it is, but it looks interesting, and I can't copy and paste it. So if you could send it to me on X, I'd love to check that out.
Russia on day one. And in fact, they were going to negotiate. They were almost at a ceasefire when we sent Boris Johnson over to make sure he didn't. And it's only because we go, we'll fund you till the end of time, that he'll keep fighting. And the truth is that Israel, talk about how radical Islam is, Israel has made peace with Egypt. They've made peace with Jordan. They've made peace with Saudi Arabia. They've made peace
Not yet.
No. When I say they've made peace, I mean they haven't been at war with that. I'm not saying they signed on to one of these dumb Trump Abraham Accord deals, which is BS anyway. We can get into that if you want. But I'm just saying they're not at war. They haven't gone to war with any of these countries. There's one little sliver of Muslims who they haven't made peace with, and that might have something to do with the fact that they've been occupying them since 1967.
And yet none of those Muslim countries want the Palestinians. Why is that? Why is it that 2 weeks ago Egypt said that they were going to shoot, they were going to militarize their border and shoot every Palestinian that tried to come across their border?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that.
These Palestinians are so innocent. Why is it that every 55 Muslim majority countries don't want them?
What's interesting about that is that it's kind of funny to be like,
maybe they know how uncivilized they are.
Isn't it like it's not an excuse to just be like, if you were like, hey, you're being brutal to these people and they're not at peace with you, and you go, well, other people are being brutal to them. But I'll tell you, part of the reason,
they don't want them, but why don't they want them?
Well, part of the reason, and there's many, part of the reason is that,
As if Israel gets along with everybody. We could say that, use that same logic back on her. How come it is that Israel fights with every other country there is in the world almost? But maybe they just awful people. Like you're doing the same thing about Gaza because one country said that. Okay, we can use that same logic on Israel.
They're bribed by the U.S. government. But aside from that, is because they know that if they were to take all of these Muslims in, that represents Israel getting 100% of what they never had a right to get anyway. And that the truth is that a lot of these people, as probably all of us would, they feel like they have a right of return to this land that was historically theirs.
So what are you going to do when Biden, and this is happening, by the way, they are in talks right now to have refugee resettlement of Palestinians here in the United States of America. What are you going to do? Well, what's your position on refugee resettlement in the United States?
I oppose it.
Okay, that's good. Because, the Biden administration is planning on, there's talks about resettling Palestinians here in the U.S. That's going to go great, isn't it?
That's bad. But just because something else bad is happening doesn't
Next
mean...
question for Dave. All right, here it is from Liam McCullum. I don't know, is that a buddy of yours?
I know Liam. Yes, yes.
He says, questions for Dave. The United States is already so intertwined in this conflict and has been since the beginning. What do you propose the U.S. does? Do you worry that even if we stopped funding Israel tomorrow, the Muslim world would still blame us for the funding them yesterday?
No. Well, I mean, look, there's no undoing the past. And so I think there is a legitimate point to be made that it's just like, hey, look, say, like, for example, we never should have fought the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq and all of this, but we did. Okay, so if we had a time machine, it'd be better to go back and not do that, but we don't. So what can we do now? But I would just say this, that there is actually a tremendous opportunity sometimes when these crises come up. And this really pisses off a lot of right-wingers, although the wisest of right-wingers always got this. But say, for example, after 9/11, there was this incredible opportunity for America to unite the world. Russia, famously, Vladimir Putin was like, what can I do to help you guys? We got calls all over. Muammar Gaddafi was like waving the white flag, like, what do you guys want? Now, part of this was fear, also, no question about that. But even in
fear of Islamic terrorism.
No, fear of our response, I think, at that point. But even in Iran, there are stories, you can go read this, at their biggest soccer stadium, I think it's 60,000 people, and they had this huge moment of silence for what happened to people on 9/11. There was the Iranian government came out and condemned it right away. Now, part of it, there's a little bit of like a Sunni Shiite beef there too. I'm not saying any of this is like
death to America every day.
Well, no, but look, this is you can. I know you want to just make this caricature of all of Islam, but that might happen. This also happened.
The government.
Okay,
you're
right,
saying,
yeah,
so.
this also happened.
Okay.
And in this moment, just try to imagine if instead of going on mass killing sprees and just slaughtering innocent Muslims by the millions over the next 20 years, imagine we had just done the special ops missions in Afghanistan. We had trapped Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora when we could have in late 2001, and we decided to let him go so George Bush could fight his war in Iraq. Imagine we had done that and then called the whole thing off. And then we had said, all right, look, we took a real hit here, but like we get what the grievances of the other side were. And that doesn't mean we're not going to try to kill the people who killed us. Once you do that, you cross the line. We're trying to kill you, but we're not just going to start slaughtering innocent people over this. All I'm saying, and I'm going to come off like a hippie here, but I actually think I'm in good standing with like conservative right-wing tradition, where what America is supposed to be is a city on a hill, not engaged in entangling alliances, not the empire of the world. Actually, maybe that's the most conservative.
Not blowing up all girls' schools.
Thing you could say as an American, but we had an opportunity to do something. And so what I think Israel could have done here and would do if America pressured them to, because all it takes is America saying, we're not going to back you on this unless you make an actual move for peace, is they could have had an opportunity to say, we're going to rise above this. We're going to demonstrate that we have respect for Palestinian life. We do not have any respect for the people who are responsible for this attack. We're going to do everything we can to kill them. But we're moving toward an actual peaceful solution here. We're giving you a real proposal of a two-state solution, not like the BS Oslo Accords. We're actually offering you what you want. Okay, you guys want to be your own government? You can be your own government. We will stop controlling the electricity and the utilities and your airspace and your water space and your ports of entry. We're not going to control that anymore. We're going to let you be your own government, but now you are responsible for what your government does going forward. Now, I'm not saying this would be perfect. I'm not saying that what's happened over the last 100 years didn't happen. But at some point, we've got to stop perpetuating this cycle. And what Israel's doing right now, look what Hamas did.
I mean, Trump did try to do that on his way out with the Palestinian prosperity plan that he had.
Okay, well, he had 4 years and he didn't do any of it. So all I'm saying is that what Hamas did, what did it result in? More Israeli violence toward them. And what is this violence going to result in? We all know what it will. More violence on the other side. At some point, you have to try to break that cycle.
Well played. Guys, we're coming to the end of our spirited debate. Shake hands, guys. I think can you
I like Dave. You know, Dave and I was on his show in 2019.
Guys,
it was a good episode.
I want to go to Israel with you, though. I really do.
All right, I'm going to end it there. Let me get some music on here, and I will take y'all out of this one. I just wanted to show this one because I feel like a lot of times, like, when you watch something that happened like a year or two ago or a little while back, it helps you to see because you can look out right now and see the things that they were talking about then. Now you can see them on your TV every night, right? So I just wanted to show you some of the mental conflict that this girl has in her brain because she can't see it. She can only see everybody else as being evil and the Jewish side as being the right side. And it's just when you're stuck like that, you can't really be somebody that like peddles influence because no one should pay attention to you. But anyway, let me get this up here. I gotta go check on my co-host. He's on the run right now. I think he's gotta go out. So I will see y'all on Friday. Big show on Friday. I'm gonna get a new one, a fresher one. It won't be a classic like today. So I will see y'all. Yeah. I will see y'all on Friday. Peace.